This training session will cover Universal Desktop reporting. Within Universal Desktop, you'll find the link for reporting. When you go to reporting, click on Report Setup. Report Setup is where you'll find all template reports, all saved reports, and all private reports. The main thing when coming into the Report Setup page is to look at the filter by Dropbox. When you immediately come into the Report Setup page, you will be presented with a screen depending upon what has been done to your system. If anyone has saved a public report, you would be directed to the Public Reports section. If you have saved a private report, you would be directed to the Private Reports section. If no one has saved any public reports, and you have never saved any private reports, you would be directed to the All section, where you can see all report templates in the system, along with any other reports that you might have saved. Unfortunately, it's not possible to change the default location that you go to when you come into Report Setup for filtering. It will always be based upon whether you have done any reports, which are private reports, whether the system has any public reports available, and if it doesn't, it will default back to the All setting. Each of the reports in this list have a star next to them in the front. That star indicates that those reports are template reports. Template reports cannot be destroyed. You will never break them. You can't hurt them. Don't worry about it. Template reports are there for you to build your own reports off of. Template reports make it very easy for you to go ahead and run the reports that you want in a way that you want to see, so you can understand what it is you want to, so you can come back to something easily later on. One of the most common reports that you might run is gross receipts. When you click on gross receipts, the gross receipts report will go ahead and become your default point. Right now, if I were to click the Run Now button, it would run the report with all defaults applied. Those defaults would be the previous period for the date range. All filters would be set to all. There would be no filtering done of anything. And formatting would be default for the report type. If I choose to go ahead and change that, I can either double click on the report or just hit edit. When I go into the report, the first place I may want to go is the date ranges. If you want to change your date range to today, to the past week, the past month, a certain time frame, you can do it here. The first thing to note is process time versus tendered time. What's the difference? Process time means the time that the check was processed in to the system. That being, what time did the check upload to the back office? Tendered time is what time was the check closed at the terminal. So if you are ever in an offline situation, tendered time can help sort your checks out to the date that they were actually charged rather than the date that they were uploaded. Most of the time you won't need to make this distinction, but it's very useful in the times when that occurs. The current selected date range will always automatically update. You can't change anything here. It will update based upon what you choose. The dynamic date range, the Dropbox, lets you pick from any number of pre-selected settings. It's important to note that you won't see current day, that being current period, unless you scroll up. A lot of people miss that. It's very easy to skip over. But always scroll up to find current period, which is today's date, 5/24, all the way to the year 9,999. Previous period gives me yesterday's data. Previous 7 days gives me the last 7 days worth of data. Previous week, month, quarter, year, week to date, month to date, quarter to date, year to date. Pretty self-explanatory. You also have the option of using a fixed date range. A fixed date range says, I don't want to take the last 5 days, I want to take the last 2 days. So I want to go from the 21st to the 23rd. Or I want to go ahead and run from the 16th to the 19th. Whatever your time frame is that you're looking for, you can go ahead and choose it from fixed date ranges. You can also include today's data by going ahead and selecting at the top 12/31/9,999. The last option is the custom period. Custom periods are used for voyages. Voyages let us go ahead and keep track of data related to the actual voyage that the ship is on. So we can go through here and find either our current voyage, our previous voyage, or a specific voyage number that is stored in the system. It's up to you as to which way you want to work on this area. I'm going to choose, for easy purposes, the previous period. Once you're done with the Date Ranges tab, go to Filters. Filters lets you make selections as to, what filtering do you want to do for your report. Do you want to choose just a few profit centers? Do you want to choose just a few meal periods? Do you want to choose just a few check types? Or do you want to choose a group of profit centers? When you go ahead and make filters, let's say I want to report for just the dining room areas. So that would be American Icon, Silk, and the Grand. I could highlight American Icon. I could scroll down, find Silk, and then let's say I want to go ahead and find the Grand. I can type it in the box, and I find it. Just click it once, and it's highlighted and it's filtered. Click it again, and it's gone. It's out of the filter. Up to you as to how many you select. You can also, we'll talk more about how we can use the store section if you have access to multiple stores for reporting. Format. Format lets us go ahead and order the report in a way that we choose. So in this case, this report can be grouped by either profit center group, or tender. So those people who missed the gross receipts by tender report, this is how you would recreate it. You would group it by profit center, then by tender. Otherwise, you might want to just do, let's say I only want to see one big number for all the bars. I could go ahead and group the report by profit center group, and because I'm filtering by profit center group of bars, I would get all the bars in one big number. In this instance, I'm going to go back and I'm going to reselect my dining room stuff. And I'm going to go set my group by to profit center. Once I'm ready, just hit run now to run the report. Depending on how much data you're asking for the report, that being how many days, it will determine how long it takes the report to run. So if I run a report for a lot of locations, it might take a long time. If I run a report for one location and it's only for one day, that was yesterday, it may be pretty easy to come back and present that data. So you just have to be patient at this point. Here's the gross receipts report for the 3 profit centers we selected. It's always important to take a look at the top line to make sure you understand when you're looking at the report, what is that report for? What date range did I pick? What profit centers did I pick? All your filtering settings will be at the top of the report itself. As we scroll through, we see yesterday we made 11 grand in the dining room with 7,000 in discounts, 600 in gratuities, and $32 in tips. The UK market is notorious for not tipping. We had 2,000 checks, 1,900 of which were positive, 80 of which were refunds. We had 1,600 covers. The average check cost $2. Now, for those of you who understand how the dining room works and how we ring up food, you understand why that average dollar check value is pretty inaccurate. You can see the revenue per revenue category. So you can see that in revenue category 2, we barely had any discounts, but in revenue category 22, we had a lot of discounts. That's because these are beverage package inclusive items. So when we do beverage packages, we get a lot of discounts to take that stuff off as part of the package. As you scroll through as well, you would see the taxes associated with that location. In this instance, we had no taxes last night. Lastly, we see the gross receipts, the refunds, and the returns to give us a total number for the location as a whole. So, running reports, pretty darn simple. Now, if you like the report that you've run, you can go back and save it. From the report setup screen, click on the main tab, and then give your report a name. Once you give the report a name, you have to choose the access level, public report or private report. A public report can be viewed by anyone who has access to reports in the system. A private report is your report. No one else can see your report. Even IT cannot see your report unless they are logged in under you. So if you choose public report, everybody has access to it. Private report, you have access to it. Private reports cannot be assigned to report groups. If you want a report to go ahead and be available for emailing or printing, you cannot assign the report to as private. It must be public. So you have to make your choice wisely. Once you make your choice, I'm going to make this one public. You can hit Save As. The report is then available with the list of all the other reports in the system. Now, if you want to go ahead and be smart, some people like to save a report as public, but keep a copy for themselves as private. That way, if you have saved your report and you've done it exactly as you want, but you think, hey, this guy might go ahead and change it because he wants it to be for something else, you can go ahead and let that guy change it, but you can keep your report so that when you come back, you always have access to it. No one else can screw it up. Now, reports can be very malleable in ways that you may not have thought about with filtering. Let's take a look. Product mix revenue. The product mix revenue report is the main product mix report in the system. You can see there are several different reports in the system called product mix, but the main one really is the revenue report. When I go ahead and use the filters, I can go ahead and filter my report down to just certain things that I'm interested in. Let's say I want to report on what beers I'm selling. I can go ahead and use the product class separate selection and choose beers. I can then hit Run Now. And here's my report for beers all across the ship. Pretty long, right? But let's say I want to go ahead and I want to change this. I want to see which beers are selling where. So I can flip this a little bit. You see how it's going by item, by profit center, by item? First, let's change the sort value. The sort value is how the report is sorted. Maybe we want to do it in this case by name. Or we want to do it by items sold. Let's see the most popular seller at the top of the report. Next, I want to group this by item and then by profit center. Let's see how that looks. The report has been run, and we can see our sales of items based upon each area where they're being sold. So if we go look at a popular item, perhaps Amstel, we can see how well it sells at the Schooner, at On Air, at American Icon, at Solarium Bar. We can see how well Angry Orchard sells at the Pub, at the Attic, at Schooner. We can see where these things are popular. Now, perhaps maybe I don't like the way this looks. It's interesting, but it's not exactly what I'm looking for. I could go ahead and switch it. I'm going to go ahead and switch it from by item by profit center to, let's say, profit center by product class by item. And I don't want to filter for just beers anymore. I want to filter for everything. So now I can go ahead and see the profit center and the product classes and everything broken down in between. Sometimes this is going to pull up a little bit more information than you actually wanted, because now we're in American Icon and we see all the food and all the drinks and all that. Everything, is kind of mashed together. Even though it's product classes, I still have a report that's now 146 pages. So maybe I'm looking at a little bit too much information in this instance. So there are ways we can go through and kind of filter that out. One of them would be by revenue category. Another would be by product class. So I'm going to start with by product class. I'm going to filter out my beers. I'm going to look for liquor. I'm going to look for wine. Okay, that's all the wine, all the beers. Cocktails. Okay, I think I got it. Let's try it. Now, we can see in Central Park, here's my beers, here's my bottle of wine, and here's my glass wine. In American Icon, here are my beers, here are my bottled wines, here are my glass wines. Beringer White Zinfandel, very popular, go figure. Now, when you're looking at this report, you may notice an instance like this one here with the Beringer White Zinfandel. You see how we've consumed 107 items, but we've only sold 106 items? Why does that difference occur? You can see that it happens with several of these glasses of wine. The reason that occurs is that some items were sold and then a refund or a void was done on the check, and the void that was used said that when you void with this, I want you to count this product as consumed. We have used it up. Users get various void reasons at the terminal. Some are marked with stars, some are not. A void reason marked with a star at the terminal will go ahead and say, I'm going to count this as sold. A void reason without a star will not count that item as sold. How can you tell, though, which items are sold or which items are being voided and which items are not? I'll show you that in a second. But I just want to go over and see how you can go through and change up your reports based upon the filtering. You can choose your filters very quickly, and then you can reformat your report very quickly as well. I've gone through and changed this report 3 or 4 times as far as formatting, and I get different data each time. And each way, it's a little bit different to look at, it's a little bit better, it's a little bit worse, depends on what you want. Once you find what you're looking for, don't forget you can always go back to main, save that report, and have it ready whenever you want. Just save it. Now, I was mentioning voids. The number one report to look at for voids is the Refund Return Void Detail Report. This will tell you everything about the void that is occurring. We'll edit it. Don't need to do too much in filters or formats. The only thing I'll show you in a few minutes is how we can format to be a little bit different so we can track down who allowed the void rather than who caused the void. Let's do a run now. So, yesterday, Francis Abustan did an item void on a refund on San Pellegrino, Glass of Valdo Prosecco, and Castle Glass Chardonnay. Whereas over here, we had a check void done on San Pellegrino and Valdo Prosecco as well for Francis. For Blagoja Andriv, we have a lot of refunds for all these different items. We have reasons for returned for these. You see how there's no star, so that does not count as an item that would be consumed. But as we go through, front desk. When front desk voids something, that means the guest went to the front desk, and that counts as consumed because we are always assuming that the guest did something in this instance that caused the front desk they drank that drink, and they're asking the front desk to take it off for some reason that we may not exactly agree with. So a front desk reason, because it's starred, means that item is going to go ahead and be counted as consumed. Disputed counts as consumed. Now, another thing to look at on this report is the authorizing employee ID. We're getting into bingo. That's kind of getting away from where we want to be. But over here, we can see the server, in this instance, Federico, had it authorized by somebody else, 348274. That is the authorizing employee. That is the person who performed the void. You can always check on who's performing voids, and if you want to go ahead and see how much they're voiding and why are they doing it perhaps, and who are they helping out, group by authorizing employee, then by the reason. Now, we can see in this instance there were some refunds, but as we go through, we'll find authorizing employee. In many of these instances is the same. But in this instance, Sabrina is the authorizing employee who refunded these checks. You can see the authorizing employee ID is different than the server ID. She did a lot. You can go through and basically always see who was it that allowed it. You can see here this person is doing a lot of refunds, a lot of voids. So the refund return void detail report lets you pull down and check on who is allowing the voids, who is causing the voids, why are they being voided, what exactly is it that is being voided. So it gives you a lot of different data that you can look at. All of these are pretty standard reports that you can run at any time that you want. That said, there is other information that you may want to take into consideration, that being the actual check that was issued to the guest. You can recreate the guest check by going to Utilities and choose Recreate Check. Then you have to know something about the check, whether it's the check number, whether it's the guest name, whether it's the guest room number. You have to know something about that check. I'm going to look up myself. I'm going to do it by looking up by patron name. When I do that, I type in the last name, and I have to choose contains. If I don't choose contains as a search value, then it will just look for Dellinger and nothing else. It won't look for my first name, it won't look for my folio number, and it will go ahead and find nothing if I do an exact match. I have to do contain search. It also helps to go ahead and change the date range if you want to go ahead and see a smaller time period. It also helps when you have people with very common last names. If the last name of the person you're looking for is Johnson, you will find a lot of checks, especially on a larger ship. So you may want to shrink that range down to just the time and date that you're looking for. When you do, you can go ahead, scroll through. Here are the checks that have been charged to me. And if that person has signed on a signature capture device, a tablet or a Verifone, you can see their signature at the bottom of the check. This is the exact copy of the check receipt that was presented to the guest at the time. Nothing else. You can go ahead and see that exact copy. Now, I might want to go look for someone else. Ooh, wow. Lots with Leanne. See, when I do something like Leanne, I'm picking up a Jillian. I'm picking up another Gillian. I'm picking up another Gillian, an Elaine. So it helps in these instances if you know their folio number, which can be challenging. You might have to go to Fidelio to get that, or you might have to get it from out of Encore. You can look up by folio number. And then I can track everything with that folio number for a certain frame of time. When you're looking up by folio number, it depends on how you can look up based upon what type of PMS you're using. If you're on an Encore ship, you can use the search field of folio number and the search value of the actual folio number, that being the folio number on the card or the folio number that's shown on the guest receipt at the top and where it says folio number. But if you're on a Fidelio ship, it's different. For starters, we're going to do Encore. If I were to do Encore folio number and that number that I pulled off the receipt, it would go ahead and find this person. But because I'm on a Fidelio ship, it's not going to find it. The reason is that that's technically not their folio number in Fidelio. In Fidelio, this person, Elaine Frichoy, her folio number is actually A998499. See? So it can be challenging. But you can still use this number here. It's just not going to be in a way you'd expect. If I take that number, I can use the credit card number field. I know this doesn't make much sense, but you can use the credit card number field and find that as a account number. So you can look up the person by their account number. You can look them up by their folio number. You can look them up by their last name. You can always go ahead and filter it to any of these fields. Credit card number helps for Fidelio ships. Folio number helps for Encore ships. Patron name, always useful. Credit card check number, always useful. It's always helpful to do a contained search so you can get as much data as possible. You can filter based on the date range. You can filter based on the profit center or the check type or the server, whatever you want. But the minimum is the search field, the value, and you probably want to choose contains.